there's a saying that goes, respect is earned, honesty is appreciated, trust is gained, and loyalty is returned. Keep this in mind as we discuss today Indonesia and China recent meeting this weekend, and what does it mean, the future geopolitics in Southeast Asia. My name is Dr. David Oualaalou.
And my name is Dr. Ross Stewart.
And you are watching Geopolitics in Conflict.
Again, we'd like to thank you for your thoughtful comments. We really appreciate them.
Indeed, Ross, I couldn't thank enough our viewers and supporters for those very insightful comments. We also wanted to thank our new Patreon members that have joined our membership. Thank you for your support. And for you, if you like our videos and you want to support us, consider our Patreon membership. And thank you for your support. Back to the topic.
Well, you know, there's a number of really important meetings coming up. G7, G20, NATO, U.S.-Russia summit, and there's one that snuck in.
Which one is that, Ross?
Oh, it's a meeting between China and Indonesia. And wow, is this a blockbuster. We looked at the highest level meeting between these two nations. What do you make of this, David?
Well, that's correct, Ross. The meeting just took place this past weekend. Interesting enough that nobody saw this coming. To some, it might not mean anything, okay? But to others, this is a very significant from different perspectives, economically, strategically, geopolitically, and so forth. So the meeting in itself is very significant. And why is that? It's because in this meeting in which the foreign minister, I believe, of China, Mr. Yi,
Wang Yi,
and the China coordinator for Indonesia met this past weekend, as we mentioned, for them, and they signed a memoranda of understanding, MOUs. And they are, yeah, go ahead, Ross.
Well, this has some real significance because, first of all, the high level of this understanding, and how many different divisions inside each country, are now actively engaged. This is a big deal.
That's correct, because before the meeting was limited only to certain departments or ministries. Now this meeting covers all ministries, which tells you what? This is the level of cooperation that now China is forging with Indonesia. It's a game changer, if I may use the term.
Well, you'd have to take a look at the geography here. And what do you make of that?
Well, yes, if you think about it from an economic perspective, it makes perfect sense, given the proximity. You know, it's within Central Asia. It's everything within that geographical area. It's within reach to China, logistically speaking. Geopolitically, it also makes perfect sense, because if China strengthens its relationship with its neighbors, those are considered neighbor, Indonesia. Of course, it's not close to China's door like Australia, but
close enough
that
they're natural trading partners.
That's correct. And what's interesting about this MOUs that they've signed, some of them has to do with maritime. Well, interesting enough is that if you know anything about Indonesia, you will know about the Strait of Malacca. The Strait of Malacca has a lot of maritime ways where a lot of transit of goods goes through that area.
And so part of the Belt and Road Initiative?
That's also interesting enough, and that falls under the economic dimensions of this sort of why China decided to elevate the partnership with Indonesia.
I've got some numbers here for you, David.
Certainly.
Indonesia imported $78 billion worth of Chinese products.
Wow.
And it's up 10.13%, and it's up over 72.9% over recent years. This is a big deal.
It is a big deal indeed. As a matter of fact, Indonesia is really, they are seeing the trends where things are going with China's growth. And they don't want to be left behind. If I am to analyze this, Ross, that is the reason why they want to head forward with this meeting, and also agreed to that all other departments or ministries will be included into this.
In a public statement, China said that Indonesia is clearly a developing country, rapidly economically and socially.
Yeah, what the foreign minister, he used the term, there is a specific term for that. Usually it's used, it's an emerging economy. Usually when you mention an emerging economy, it tells you that it's having an impact on the global level. So, and China wanted to sort of capitalize on that economically, because China is also capitalizing on this visit politically.
Well, you know, there's some really strategic implications here with the United States. What do you think of that?
Well, for sure, I'm glad you mentioned that one. The reason being because if you know anything about the history of the United States and Indonesia relations, it goes way back. Without going into depth into the history of it, we just mentioned back in the 70s or even early 80s during the Suharto era. Well, we all know how that history went back then. But what's been developed after that, especially with the new Indonesian leadership, is that what they realized is that, especially during the Obama administration.
Oh, they just ignored Indonesia.
Exactly. They've been giving Indonesians lip service, if you will. So the Americans were saying one thing, but doing another. And this is where I believe, and this is my opinion, that China capitalized on this. It's almost like coming to Indonesia and say, hey, the Americans were just giving you lip service. We are here to do business with you.
We deliver.
We deliver. And as a matter of fact, speaking of that, Ross, they decided now to build a speed train for Indonesia between Jakarta and Bandung.
Good enough, good enough.
Good enough, that word for that. The city is Bandung.
You got it correct.
Bandung. Oh,
Yeah.
It's hard to pronounce, but the point in this is that it tells you right there, China is going to assist Indonesia now in having that speed train. And we all know when it comes down to infrastructure for high-speed rail,
China is the leader.
Yeah. So what does it mean economically for Indonesia? Can you imagine when you build a speed rail like that, what it's going to do to your economy? It's the same outcome that China has experienced when it built its 77,000 miles of high-speed rail.
As we've discussed previously, China is now reaching record numbers of imports, and that has to have a wonderful impact on the Indonesian economy.
Yeah, and that is the reason I believe, it's common sense. I believe that Indonesians are seeing where the trend is going. And they figured we may as well just get on the wagon with where China's headed, because we don't want to be left behind. And mind you, like we did the video last time about the ASEAN meeting.
Oh, yeah.
In which China signed that agreement with 15 members. Indonesia was one of those. So you can just see why it makes perfect sense from both countries to go ahead and forge this partnership, that it's going to now be elevated to another level.
You know, all of this with the backdrop of the pandemic, these are astonishing developments. This all occurred in spite of.
That's correct, because also, speaking of the pandemic, that China has helped Indonesia now by having its president, the Indonesian president, get the shots from the Chinese vaccine right away. So it tells you just that willing to cooperate on all levels, but also because China sees the opportunity politically and economically, and also Indonesia seeing the opportunity in aligning itself with China rather than the United States. Because both the United States previous administrations did not deliver. The Chinese did. This is where I see it going.
What would you say the takeaway is from this?
Well, the idea of that we are witnessing now the change taking place as we speak. In other words, China is not waiting for anything else. China is moving forward with forging partnerships with regional countries. That, to me, is to strengthen its economic and political ties to those countries, be they in Southeast Asia or even on the whole Pacific realm.
That means their masterful production machinery has many, many more markets than it would otherwise.
Well, it is because its economy is growing. As a matter of fact, just the recent quarter for China's import, global import, has increased dramatically. I don't have the numbers with me here, but I just read something this morning about that one.
Yeah.
It was very interesting when you consider that the global economy was shut down and all that stuff. China didn't. It didn't impact its growth.
That's the 18% growth the first quarter.
That's correct. And we did mention this one before, and that highlights to you countries in the region like Indonesia will be keeping an eye on this and saying to themselves, hey, we're going to have to think about our own economic and strategic interests. And it makes perfect sense for them to align themselves with China than to depend on the United States.
Is China putting any pressure on Indonesia to comply with rules, to comply with whatever China demands?
Not at all, Ross. I'm glad you mentioned that one. China made it clear, at least based on what I read for the post-meeting between the Chinese and the Indonesian delegations, it just was like, hey, it's your decision. We'll be happy to work with you economically, to elevate your economy for the Indonesian, that is. And no, I don't see any pressure that China placed on Indonesia to do so. Indonesia came to the conclusion based on years of experience with the United States that have not yielded the desired results, economically speaking. And when you think about it, I mean, for Indonesia, it's not a small market.
Oh,
yeah.
I can't remember what the population is, but it's shocking.
It is large.
Yeah.
The same like in Malaysia, same like, when you think of those countries, you think about the sheer size of the market, but also when you consider China's economic growth, it makes perfect sense. So I would say that is a partnership that will benefit both countries. And especially from a strategic perspective for China, it has to do with the Strait of Malacca. That is the key to that.
Well, I think there's a basic takeaway, and that is we're seeing a failed U.S. policy toward Indonesia, and the Chinese opportunistically took the correct action, moved in, and doing great business there. Now, there is a long-term implication for Americans, and that is prices here will probably go up. Inevitable. Let us know your thoughts in the comments. Also, be sure to check out our other videos. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Thanks for watching.
And as always, stay informed. Till next time. Bye-bye.